we're talking about greatest common factors with a list. So to start, please make sure that you have written down our learning target. Our learning target today is I can find greatest common factors of two or more numbers using a list. Please make sure you write down the date. Write down your I know. Maybe you don't know anything about greatest common factors, but you know about factors because we talked about those on our prime factorization video, so you could write what you know about factors. Then continuing to our vocabulary, we have 4 vocabulary words today. Our first word is greatest, which maybe seems like a silly vocab word, but the definition of greatest is the largest in a group. So make sure you write that down. Next one is common. There's several definitions of common, but the one that we're going to be using for this is the same. So, for example, I might have something in common with another person because we both have curly hair. Or I might have something in common with another person named Amanda because my first name is Amanda. So if I met another person named Amanda, then we would have something in common. If you are in 6th grade, then you have something in common with every other 6th grader. You're all in 6th grade. So common is something that is alike between or the same. Factor, that was a vocabulary word for our last video, but we're going to write it down again anyway because it's a really important word for this unit. A factor is a number that multiplies with another number to give a product. And then finally, greatest common factor is the largest number that divides evenly into 2 or more numbers. So at this point, please pause the video and make sure you get caught up in everything and restart when you're ready to go. The topic today is finding the greatest common factor of 2 or more numbers by making a list. So what this means is we were asked to find the greatest common factor of 2 numbers. Let's say those 2 numbers were 16 and 28, and I wanted to find the greatest common factor. What I do is I actually am going to start by listing the factors. To list the factors, I start with the smallest thing that I know will go in. I know the number 1 is going to go in. And then I know that the biggest number that's going to go into 16 is 16. Okay? So now I'm going to check things that are between this. So let's see if 2 goes into 16. If I think, does 2 go into 16? Yep. 2 goes into 16. And so does 2 times 8. 2 times 8 is 16. So I'm going to keep looking for things that are somewhere in between 2 and 8 that might go into 16. So I think does 3? No. 4. 4 goes into 16, and it's actually 4 times 4. So my total list is 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. And I know I have this big gap here, but I left that there because I was making space for if there were more factors. And it's okay that there's a gap there now. Now I'm going to do the same thing for 28. I want to come up with pairs of numbers that are going to multiply to give me the number 28. Okay, so I always start with 1. That's the smallest number. It goes into everything. And 28. So if I have 1 and I have 28, okay, we're now going to come up with anything that's in between 1 and 28 that might go into 28. 28 is even, so I know 2 will go into it. 2 times, I could use my calculator, or if I know in my head, it's 14. Continuing, I could do 28 divided by 3. If I did that on my calculator, I would get a decimal. We don't want decimals. Greatest common factor is everything that goes in evenly. But 28 divided by 4, well, that's 7. So now all I need to do is check if anything between 4 and 7. So if 5 or 6 go into 28. So if I divide both 5 and 6 on my calculator, neither of those go into 28. So again, we have a gap here. That gap doesn't matter. It means my factors for 28 are 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, and 28. My factors for 16 are 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. So these now are my factors. I want to find the greatest common factor. So I listed the factors, and that was my first step. Okay? My second step now is I want to find the common factors. Okay. Common factors are ones that show up on both lists. So if I'm looking for numbers that show up on both lists, well, 1 is on both, 2 is on both, 4 is on both, 8, 16, 7, 14, 28, those only show up on one list or the other. So my common factors, the ones that they have in common, are 1, 2, and 4. My third step then is the greatest common factor. So I'm going to look at my common factors and I'll say which one is the biggest, 1, 2, or 4. Well, clearly 4 is the largest. So my answer is 4. That is my greatest common factor. So the 3 steps we're going to be using, first listing the factors, then we're going to find factors that are common on the 2 lists, ones that they have the same. And the third step is finding the one that's the largest. Okay? Let's see if we can do the same thing for 30 and 90. Okay? So if you want to try to solve this problem on your own using the steps we did before, go ahead and do it. Pause the video. Otherwise, you can keep watching. So for 30 and 90, to find the greatest common factor, I'm going to start by, just as before, listing the factors. So the smallest factor is always 1, and then my biggest will be 30, because 1 times 30 is 30. So now I'm checking for more pairs, so I'm going to check 2. If I do 30 divided by 2, I get 15. Okay? Now I can check the number 3. 30 divided by 3, well, that gives me 10. 30 divided by 4 is a decimal, so I won't write 4 down. 30 divided by 5, well, that's actually 6. The nice thing about 5 and 6 both going into it is I now know, well, 5 and 6 are next to each other, so that means that there's nothing else that could possibly go in between here. Okay? So this is all my factors for 30. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, 30. Those are my factors as I'm doing my step 1, which is listing the factors. Okay? Same thing for 90, starting with 1 and 90. Okay? 2 also goes into 90. It's 2 and 45. 3 goes into 90. 90 divided by 3 is 30. Then I have 4 and 15. 5 and 18. 6. I made a mistake. Sorry, guys. 4 goes into 90 is not, 4 does not go into 90. Sorry, guys, I messed that up. So I have 1, 2, 3. I made a mistake. 4 does not go in. 5 goes in 18 times. And 6 goes in 15 times. That was where I made my mistake. Sorry about that. I apologize. So I have 1, 2, 3. Again, I have 5 and 6 next to each other. 15, 18, 30, 45, and 90. So now I want to know what is the greatest. Oh, and then I also have 9, 10. If I check 7 and 8, those will both not go in. But 9 and 10 will. Now that I have 9 and 10 next to each other in the middle, I know that I am done. Now I check for common factors. I have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 15, and 30 that all show up on both lists. That's my step 2. Is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 15, and 30. So my answer then is the biggest one, which is that 30 is my greatest common factor. Okay? We can also do this for numbers that are not just 2 numbers. So we can do this for 3 numbers. We could do 14, 70, and 91. So if I did this with 3 numbers, okay, let's start. 14, that's going to be 1 and 14. It's going to be 2 and 7. If I check 3, 4, 5, and 6 for this middle section, none of those go into 14. So my answers are just 1, 2, 7, and 14. For my pairs of numbers that will go into 70, again, 1 times 70. If I do 70 divided by 2, I get 2 and 35. 3 does not go into 70. 4 does not go into 70. 5 does go into 70. So I'll do 5 and 14. 6 does not go into 70. 7 does. So I'll have 7 and 10. And then I check 8 and 9. Neither of those go in. So because I checked everything in the middle here, none of it goes in. That means we're done. So my factors of 70 are 1, 2, 5, 7, 10, 14, 35, and 70. Making sure we leave enough room so we don't make a mistake like I made up there on 90. That's why we need to leave all that space in there. Okay? For 91, we have 1, 91. And we're going to have to think a little bit on this one. 1 and 91, I know. 2 doesn't go into it. 3 doesn't go into 91. 4, 5, 6. If I check all of those, they don't go into 91. I don't get anything else going into 91 as I try dividing it until I get 7. 91 divided by 7 is 13. Then if I keep checking 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, none of those numbers that are between 7 and 13 go into 91. So that means that I'm actually done. The only factors of 91 are 1, 7, 13, and 91. And I figured that out just by trying things till I got 7 times 13. And since nothing else in between those numbers worked, that means I'm done. Now I need to circle the common numbers. So I have my factors. Now I need my common factors. Well, I have 1. And then I see that I have 2 shows up on both of these lists, but it doesn't show up on the list for 91. And common needs to be the same on all 3 lists, so I can't actually circle that. So looking for anything else, I see that 7 shows up on all 3 lists. Once again, I see 14 shows twice, but because it doesn't show up 3 times, I can't circle it. And then that's it. So my common factors are 1 and 7, which means my greatest common factor is 7. In our next video, we'll learn another strategy for how to find greatest common factor. But for your next assignment, please try solving them with a list like that. Please feel free to rewatch the video for any sections you need help on. And please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.